Hi, you guys.
What's up?
How you doing?
Awesome, how are you?
I'm good. I'm like, it's that first wave, like when you've been at it all day, the first time is like when you start to think, oh, I'm getting tired. Oh, I've got 3 more places to be. It's good though, it's fun. I think the next place we're going has a bar. So I'm gonna have a Bloody Mary.
That's great.
Yeah.
So if Vampire Diaries was centered around romance and the originals was centered around family, what's going to be at the core of Legacies?
Friendship. Yeah, I think so. Friendship and ultimately, and it's not as soundbitey, but I think the idea of coming into the best or worst version of yourself, coming of age, for sure.
I definitely got that vibe from the trailer.
Good.
Now, we've heard a few times that you've always wanted to do the boarding school stories. So is that what you'd say you're most excited about with this new universe?
I'm excited about the world build of it, definitely, because it's, like I said, like you just said, it's a world I've wanted to be in for a really long time. But I'm really excited to tell teen stories. You know, I feel like the beauty of the coming of age story right now, or the teen story right now, is that it doesn't have to be a teen show in order to do it. Like, I thought 13 Reasons Why was an extraordinary piece of television, and we're going to be living in all those same problems and themes and ideas and relationships. Only we're doing it in a supernatural context, and I think that it's universal. So it's not just like, oh, I'm a 17-year-old tuning into my 17-year-old show. I mean, I'm like in my late 40s, and I would watch this show in a heartbeat. So hopefully other people will feel the same way.
Yeah, that's great.
Have you drawn inspiration from like when you were in high school and added that supernatural element to it?
Everything that I do is pulling off some piece of my own emotional history, you know, something I've lost in my life, someone I've loved in my life, someone who's rejected me in my life, you know, friendships that that have changed and shifted, betrayals, all that. You know, it really, writing is all about drawing from your own emotional response and then finding a story within it. And it's the feelings that you have as a teenager are so simple, and that they're so wild. And you don't have to be able to explain them. You just are them, you know? And so to be able to write with that sense is really fun.
Is there anything different in 2018 that you're excited about writing into the high school experience in the TV show?
Everything's different in 2018, and yet ultimately our kids are going through the same thing we all went through. They're just going through it with a lot of extra layers of baggage, you know? Bad parents, evil parents in this case, mental illness, you know, chemicals that are messing with your head and messing with your body that make it really hard to just get out of bed in the morning, that kind of thing. We're able to, now that people are talking more openly about mental illness and about, you know, ableism and any kind of tolerance and compassion and all that, like, we're just living in a world where all that stuff is okay, and I wanted to really explore that and not run from any of it. Sorry, I'm like literally dying.
Danielle mentioned that part of Hope's arc is sort of coming into her own, accepting like the power that she has and the legacy that she is bringing.
Nice Danielle.
So, how about some of her supporting cast? Like, what kind of arcs are we seeing for the other characters?
So what we have, which I'm loving so much, is, for example, Lizzie and Josie. If you remember, like, their ancestors are the Gemini witches, including one Kai Parker, who is a freaking psychopath. And this is like a coven that like sacrifices their own and is filled with a long line of mental illness. And Lizzie is a product of that, as is Josie. Both girls are born from a rooted darkness in their bloodline, and yet they were raised by 2 pretty terrific parents. And so every day they're just struggling with the curse of what their family bloodline has given them in their minds, and really fighting with all the best parts of themselves to be good people. But Lizzie is opinionated, and she's delicate, and she wants to be adored, and she is loud about it, and she is bossy about it, and she has some real high highs and some real low lows. And Josie, as one would imagine, being a twin to that kind of dynamic personality, has just made a role for herself as the protector, as the steady one, the sturdy one, the stable one, and really is just like wildly codependent when all of it comes down to it. So those girls are such great characters and like really wonderful young women who just have a lot of damage that they need to work out.
I've got kind of a fun question for you.
Okay.
So my wife read all 3 of the originals books on our honeymoon.
Oh my gosh.
Are we going to see any more stories like that in novel form on this universe?
I really would like Alloy to do a Legacies series that takes place between the school's doors opening and where we are now. Like sort of the first class, you know, so it's like, yeah, Hope and the girls are young, you know, the twins are like under 10 and Hope's, you know, 10 and under, but who are the teenagers of that sort of first graduating class of the Salvatore School? I think that'd be awesome, and I would write it if I had time, and so maybe I'll make time because I'd be super into that.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, in the panel, you spoke a lot about the legacies of the characters that we know, whose kids are at the school.
Yeah.
So what does it mean for an immortal being to have a legacy, and how is that going to tie into the new series?
Well, it's funny because, like, you know, I'm a geek for Hamilton, and the thing that just crushed my soul when I saw Hamilton was the who lives, who dies, who tells your story, you know? And the idea of what mark do you leave on this earth when you leave it, and with these parents of these kids, a lot of them were like immortal beings, you know? So with that comes all the pride and all the history of your lineage, but also all of the damage, you know, sometimes centuries of it. And it can feel inescapable, and it can feel like it will crush you. And so these kids are really working to overcome the legacy that they were left with, as much as respecting it where it matters.
That's great. So we have heard a little bit about there are going to be some new supernatural creatures with storylines coming into town. You can't disclose which, I'm sure, but where do you draw inspiration for those? And where are you kind of finding that?
We are drawing our inspiration from anything that's ever like appeared in our dreams or in nightmares, or anything in, you know, that we could get our hands on. It's actually been a lot of fun. And without saying too much, just being like, what if there was a ... you know, and then developing a lore attached to it.
How deep do you usually go into that lore when you create these?
It depends. It depends on what it is. It depends on, you know, we feel the rule is identify and vanquish, right? So these kids, you know, as they come face to face with the supernatural beings that they don't understand, identify, survive, and then figure out how to vanquish. And so with that can come a whole set of rules and new information that they've got to uncover. Yeah, it's fun.
We know Hope's already got and will be having a lot of male dynamics, whether they're romantic or platonic. But what is in store for her in terms of women, like the twins, and then any other women that are coming into her life?
Yeah. She has several women in her life outside of her family, of course, who, you know, with luck will make appearances as well. But as a young woman who lost her mother, she definitely has a hole that needs to be filled for the solidarity of sisterhood. And because she protects herself so much, and because she doesn't want to get too close to people, she's really missed an opportunity to be friends with the Saltzman girls, and that's something that eats at her occasionally. Sometimes she wants nothing to do with them, but then she and Josie will have a moment, for example, that seems like, oh, these girls could really be friends if circumstances were different. And a budding friendship between Hope and Josie, much to the chagrin of course Lizzie, is one of the roads I definitely want to travel down. And then there's going to be a guidance counselor at the school named Emma, who is sort of like the therapist. You know, she herself is a witch. She grew up and had her own damage, and now and now she's the one that they can go to and turn to and shoulder to cry on, and that kind of helps them work through their stuff. So she's going to be a nice, strong support system for Hope, who really, frankly, needs it. She doesn't like to admit that she needs it, but she 100% needs it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there room for Caroline to fill that role?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, look, I'd like Candace to be on the show till the end of time. I'm going to wait for Candace to want to be on the show till the end of time, and whenever that happens, like, she will be able to fill that role so beautifully. And in the meantime, you know, we just have to find. Hope is going to have to figure out how to let people in and let people care about her.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a twin that you'd say is more like her?
Lizzie Saltzman
Yeah.
is Caroline at 17, and Josie is Caroline today. Yeah, it's super fun.
That's great.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you
Thanks,
so
guys. I
much, Julie.
appreciate it.